Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
All right, back to another adventure here on Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, Annie, the radio, whatever I am, the chickadee or whatever, along with Hannah Davis, the investigations manager for fairus.org. Hannah, we got ourselves a fistful of stuff going on today. Everything that happened over the weekend and in the last couple of days dealing with the funding to DHS. It was signed in yesterday by Trump. Thankfully, we're finally getting some things back on stage. And as I was coming in, Trump is heading down to Florida. There's a tournament going on, his golf course, a PGA tournament over there. So he'll be heading over there. But he also made an announcement that maybe we may be seeing peace in the Middle East a lot sooner than later.
Did he?
Yeah. So I can't wait until we get off air so I can follow up on what's going on over there. But if someone's inside one of the chat rooms, please send us a message on the comments there or what's going on. But we got two great guests. They've been on before. Dennis Kneale. He's got a new book out called Oregoners, the decimation of Oregon, especially Portland, because of Wokism and leftist policies that have actually destroyed the state. And we're going to be talking about him, what's going on in New York, and a lot of other things. He's also got a page called Save Our Cities, where he's trying to get this wokeism out of there. This idea that socialism works in the United States. And he's working tirelessly to bring back some common sense, bring back the founding principles of this nation that made us so great and keep making us so great. With that, we also have a friend of the show, Michael Letts. He has an organization called Invest US, where they buy the ballistic vests for law enforcement. A lot of these agencies can't afford them. And I know when I went on the job, you had to buy your own vest because they weren't issuing them department-wide. And there's still a lot of departments that's small enough that they can't afford them. So a lot of guys and gals go out and have to buy their own. And he goes through fundraising into different communities and says, all right, fine, your guys and gals need these vests. Let's raise some funds and we'll buy them and get them out there for you.
Right.
So it's really a good organization.
Yeah, it's a great cause.
He's got a very, very storied background. So we're going to have a lot of fun with him. He is an absolute panic. So there's so much that is going on. We also have a lot that's going on here. There's an article that you actually missed. You sent me a couple to take a look at. But here, I'm going to bounce this one off of you.
What I missed?
Judge Boasberg, Judge James Boasberg. A lot of these illegal gangs, aliens that are tied to violent gangs like Tren de Agua in El Salvador. Well, he made a major ruling saying that if you deport these aliens, you have to pay to send them back to the United States.
Yeah,
you must send them back.
I saw that. You know, the last I've read on the topic is that the courts told hey, you can't do that. You can't be focusing on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it kind of broke up a little bit.
Oh, my bad. The last I read on the topic was that he basically kind of targeted administrative leaders within the Trump administration, people in the DOJ saying, hey, you can't do this. some kind of court ruling he issued. And then on top of that, he said, I think what he was doing was investigating the deportation measures that the current administration's taking. And my most recent readings on the topic are that he was told that he can't keep doing this. and that he can't target administrative personnel, and that he can't put, for lack of a better term, injunctions or broad sweeping. He doesn't have the broad sweeping authority to tell them what they can and can't investigate. Now, I'm not quite privy if that is inherently linked to the plane deportations, but yeah, I'm not so up to date on that. But yeah, he's he's a woke judge. He's got woke priorities, and those priorities do not at all in any way include the American populace. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But the last I saw is that they put a stop to it, and that he can't do what he's been telling people to do. He can't do the deportation flights. He can't make people, the administration, fund them. Anybody who had previously been deported isn't going to hop back on a plane and come into the U.S. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I only know a little bit about that topic, so I admit.
Well, very funny, because one of the articles you sent me dealing with the Fifth Circuit and Texas border law, one of the judges, in his opinion, stated is that it was the duty of the court to uphold the law, not tell whether or not the policies are, whether or not they're constitutional or not. They're saying you have the power to do certain policies, and the Constitution gives you that power to do that.
Yeah.
It's not for us to judge at that point. We have to judge whether or not this is constitutional and it's within the letter of the law, and your portion of that letter of the law. Both doing that. He's making law. He's making policy. And this judge, Cho, I believe his name was Cho, said, we don't make policy. We rule on the law.
Yeah, it's a solid reasoning from that judge. And I believe you're talking about Texas Senate Bill 4, which I think a lot of people back in 2023, when it was introduced, thought it was going to be dead on arrival. But with the political climate of Texas, it did pass, but it did not go into effect because a 3-year temporary injunction took place. And that was just lifted by the Court of Appeals in the Fifth Circuit, is what you're mentioning. And now it's allowing the law to move forward. I mean, then again, it doesn't take effect until May 15th. So it gives people time for opposition. It gives opposition time to file, court cases against the law. And I do know that a lot of legal scholars think that SB4 will make it up to the Supreme Court, and it can affect efforts led by Republican states. And for our listeners, if they don't know what SB4 is, it kind of gives Texas state and local law enforcement the ability to arrest people who are suspected of crossing the border illegally, whether it be their first time or they've already been deported and they re-entered. And then on top of that, it gives local judges in Texas the ability to keep those individuals detained and deported. And so we no longer have to rely on federal enforcement mechanisms in Texas, whether it be federal law enforcement like ICE or CBP or federal immigration judges. And so it's kind of it makes immigration not just a federal responsibility. It's kind of a layered effect that involves Texas's state and local court system, as well as the state and local law enforcement system. And so, and for Texas, I mean, they share, I think, over half of the U.S.-Mexico border is in Texas alone. And so they've gotten the brunt of not only the previous administration's open border policies, but just what's happening now. Just because the borders are no longer porous doesn't mean that those individuals still aren't in the U.S. And a lot of them are situated in Texas. And there's a lot of cartel and criminal activity in Texas because of that. And so what they're doing is trying to take the laws into their own hands. And so, like I said, it doesn't go into effect until mid-May. It'll be interesting to see if anybody tries to fight it in court. Everything I'm reading is that people will. But as far as Texas, it's a win. And the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit ruled accordingly with the rule of law and saying that, hey, we're not judging the policy. Like you said, that's not what we're here for. What we're saying is whether or not it's constitutionally sound. Is it legal? And it is. But that's also up for debate. So I do believe it'll go to the Supreme Court.
Well, it probably will. But what people don't understand, the Constitution gives states to declare war. If the states feel they're being invaded by a foreign entity, not migration between states, that they cannot prohibit. That's also part of the Constitution. But if a border state or another state feels that there is an invasion of illegals or people that are not Americans across the border, to either disrupt society or whatever mayhem they decide to do, Texas can say this is a state of war.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically is. This is, and I've said this from day one, this is a foreign invasion.
Yeah.
And these people are being trafficked across the border. We know that we do have people from Iran that have links to terrorism. We know
Mm-hmm.
that for a fact that they are here. We just can't find them. We know who they are, just can't find them.
Yeah.
We know there's Chinese nationals, men of military age that crossed over. We know that there are people here intended on committing terrorism and harm within the United States. Texas just took the step in saying the Constitution under Section 10 of Article 1 of the Constitution provides that states without consent of Congress may declare war. So Texas is saying we're in a state of war, so we're going to protect our borders. We're going to reinforce them, whether or not they're with these floating devices in the middle of the Rio Grande or with barbed wire fences or with added security along the border. And anyone who does infiltrate us beyond those borders are enemy combatants. And now we can hold them without having to go through Department of Homeland Security. We don't have to go through immigration. We are holding them as an enemy combatant.
And taking the criminal element out of it, even if all of these illegal aliens came to Texas and were law-abiding citizens outside of the fact that they entered illegally to begin with, the fiscal cost, the impact fiscally on Texas is unprecedented. These illegal aliens, law-abiding or not, once they're here, they're in our healthcare system. They're in our schools. They're draining classroom funds. They're on our roads. They're driving without insurance or licenses. It all adds up. They're in our job systems, and a lot of things in Texas are unfortunately subsidized by the federal government because the state doesn't quite offer many benefits to illegal aliens that are taxpayer based. But a lot of the subsidies that they get from the federal government are in general leeching off of the 50 states and taxpayer based in some ways. And so even if you take the criminal element out of it, Texas has a right to defend its state. And even if it was just the mere fiscal cost of it all, that's enough in and of itself. And so it'll be interesting to see if other states follow suit. I know Texas isn't alone with its issues. We've got northern states at the northern border. We've got Arizona, New Mexico that have these issues. But the more left you go out west, no pun intended, the more leftist their policies seem to be. New Mexico and Arizona and California are riddled with illegal alien crime as well, and the fiscal burden as well. But they're a lot more left-leaning, and so they're more likely to push their constituents to the wayside in favor of the illegal immigration that they've had. So, but at the end of the day, it's probably going to go up to the Supreme Court. But hurrah for Texas! They won the first legal hurdle, and we'll have to see if it actually implements on May 15th. But there could be another court case before that, so someone could file easily.
Well, if you think about this, every single state and territory is a international port of entry. You've got an international airport in each and every one of them.
Yeah.
It's a port of entry at that point. You don't have to be a border. They are automatically a border with those international airport points of entry. So, every single red state at this point, I think, should do the same thing as Texas, declare a state of war for illegal invasion.
Yeah, and if it doesn't hold up, it's definitely going to affect any efforts, like I said earlier, by Republican-led states. There's other states that probably want to follow suit, but if it doesn't go well for Texas in court, it's not going to go well for those Republican states either. But on the opposite side of that coin, if it goes extremely well for Texas, as it has been so far, it could set a precedent that other states should follow suit. So even if they're a red or a blue state that doesn't really deal a lot with illegal immigration, say like Montana or something, it still could be a symbolic effort. They could still pass a law in and of itself symbolically to represent that they are in alignment with, pro-American policies rather than pro-immigrant policies.
Well, we have a landmark, 76 days, and finally, we have funding to DHS.
We got somewhere.
Yeah, it passed 215 to 211.
Yeah, along party lines. Yeah.
We know what side Fetterman voted on.
Yeah. He's what Democrats would call a squish. He's what Republicans would call he's got common sense. So, Wednesday evening, the House passed a budget resolution to step back and reframe for our listeners, the Senate had previously passed this same budget resolution. Of course, House Democrats were against it, but it still got through. And yesterday, on Thursday, Trump signed it into law, which ultimately gives funding for the TSA, FEMA, the Coast Guard, even the Secret Service. We know the Secret Service definitely needed funding after what happened at the congressional dinner. They're strapped thin for sure. And so what we're going to do, I think what Republicans want to do in Congress is say, hey, we're going to wait and fund ICE and CBP through a reconciliation budget process. And currently right now, ICE and CBP have funding through the Big Beautiful Bill until I believe 2029. And so a lot of Democrats are saying, see, we don't need to fund them. But I mean, 2029 is right around the corner. And with the unprecedented amount of operations we've been doing these past years under the Trump administration, that money will dwindle eventually. Yeah. And so I do know a lot of House Republicans, even some Senate Republicans. People are very outspoken towards Speaker Johnson, saying that he's backtracked, that he's switched up. But at the end of the day, it's politics. He follows the guidance of and the cues of the White House, the Oval Office. When Trump didn't want them to pass it, they weren't passing it. When Trump realized that, hey, these rainy day funds, we're running out of them. We're going into a 70-day unprecedented DHS funding shutdown. We've had over 1,000 TSA agents, quit. We've had, I think, like 2/3 of DHS personnel are furloughed. Something's got to give. I'm not going to be able to pay them. Coast Guard. I was looking at an article saying that there's like millions and millions of dollars of unpaid utility bills just for Coast Guard service members because they can't afford to do so. And so they couldn't go into May, another month without pay. And so I think Speaker Johnson took the cues from the White House and said, okay, well, we'll pass this and we're going to ensure that ICE and CBP are going to be funded through reconciliation. And so that's due on Trump's desk by June 1st. But they're going to recess really soon. So they're probably going to go on a little vacation first and then try and hash out reconciliation after that, just in time to get it on his desk by June. So.
Wow. Well, it's going to be interesting to see
this. It's been a whirlwind.
All ahead. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see it all hashed out. We're waiting for our next guest. He should be calling in about 10 minutes. So in the interim, those that watch the show know that we do a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going out to Detective Randy Hoppert of the Tulare County Sheriff's Office in California. His end of watch was this year, Thursday, April 9th. And here's his dedication.
Tonight, we're also learning more about the suspect who authorities say shot and killed Deputy Hoppert after being served an eviction notice around 10:40 Thursday morning.
Neighbors have identified him as 59-year-old David Morales. They tell Action News they had called law enforcement on him in the past, but are still surprised to learn what happened just feet away from their doors.
Action News reporter Carrie Mannix joins us live from that neighborhood tonight after speaking with people who live there. Carrie?
Warren, Vanessa, many neighbors here still very shaken today, and some of them even had destruction to their house. I want to show you one fence right next to the house that was involved in the shootout yesterday where Morales lived. You can see that fence was taken down by everything that was going on yesterday. And now Morales had lived here in his house right there for over 20 years. But Action News learned someone new took over ownership in December of last year. Records show he was asked to leave several times, leading to yesterday's final eviction. The Bearcat that ran over and killed 59-year-old David Morales Thursday night was taken from this once peaceful Porterville neighborhood turned battle zone Friday afternoon. Just 24 hours earlier, authorities say Morales shot and killed Tulare County Sheriff's Deputy Randy Hoppert, which turned into an hours-long standoff. It forced neighbors to barricade themselves inside their homes.
It's shocking what happened, but it's not surprising as to who it came from.
Hey, all occupants are out. No one's home.
Action News uncovered property records that show Morales had been living in the nearly 1,500 square foot home since 2005, but it went into foreclosure last year. Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreau says after being asked to leave several times, Morales knew Thursday would be his final eviction notice, and he armed himself before deputies arrived. Several neighbors told Action News they had called authorities on Morales in the past.
We called the cops and we've told them he's not okay. Like, you guys need to be careful with this guy. When my dad would come and pick my kids up, he turned around in the cul-de-sac too, and he came chasing them out. He chased him all the way down the street.
But still, they say they never would have thought that it would have come to this. One man even saying he witnessed the violence unfold.
I was distraught, and then that's when I went in. At that point, I got my pups and I took them to the inner closet of my house, and we just stayed on the ground for a good while.
After being trapped inside his home for nearly 5 hours, John Alvarado says a team came to evacuate him and his dogs. He says he's grateful he made it out because of men like Randy Hoppert.
Those kids, his wife, you had a hero in your home. I saw the guy come up. I saw the way he looked at the situation. He had no fear in his eyes. No fear in his eyes. And he's the only one that took a bullet that day.
In a breaking news update, there's been an outpouring of support today for fallen Deputy Randy Hoppert. A procession carried his body from the Tulare County Coroner's Office to Salzer and Dillard Funeral Chapel in Visalia this afternoon. Several fundraisers have also been set up to help his family as they navigate this tragedy. Thanks for joining us tonight for Action News Live at 5. I'm Warren Armstrong.
And good evening. I'm Margot Kim, in for Graciela Moreno. Action News reporter Tiffany Olin joins us live from the funeral home with how the community is leaning on each other to heal. Tiffany?
Warren and Margot, we were at that procession that drew in people who didn't even know Deputy Hoppert but felt the impact of his loss. That procession ended here just hours ago, where flags are still at half staff. Now the community is really rallying together to get through this tragic event. Remembering and honoring Tulare County Deputy Randy Hoppert is top of mind for many in the Central Valley. Hoppert was shot and killed while serving an eviction notice in Porterville last Thursday. The tragedy weighing heavy on the community as Hoppert leaves behind a pregnant wife and family.
His mom and his wife lost him. I mean, who wants to lose their child? Who wants to lose their husband over something senseless?
A procession of first responders from across the valley escorting the fallen deputy from the coroner's office to this funeral chapel on Monday, where dozens paid their respects.
This shouldn't even be happening today. This should be a day where he should be at work, happy.
Several organizations have set up fundraisers to help his family, including the Visalia Rawhide, which announced all ticket sales for this Thursday's game will go to the Hopperts.
We just wanted to do our part, right? Like, this is something that's so much bigger and so much larger than a single event. That we're just trying to find a way to help the family.
The team expects to get close to a sellout in hopes of giving the family as much as possible.
I don't know what we thought we were going to get, but it definitely wasn't over 800 tickets in a 48-hour window of time.
The team says there will be a moment of silence to honor Hoppert, who served in the U.S. Navy from 2010 to 2015 and joined the Tulare County Sheriff's Office in January 2020. He comes from a long line of family service for the Tulare County Sheriff's Office. His grandfather was the undersheriff, dad a retired deputy, and his aunt and uncle former deputies. His own service cut short, but his legacy lives on.
Thank you, Tiffany. Stay with Action News both on air and online as we continue to follow the tragic killing of Deputy Randy Hoppert. We'll let you know about memorial services and any other public events taking place in the coming days to help support his family.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us make room. Let us reimagine welcoming voices with true compassion. Let's craft a world with hopes and dreams, challenges known, those still unseen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be sure when our time has come, we gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let it be said. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation.
Today's dedication is not just to Detective Randy Hoppert, but it's all to all first responders, be they law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency services, and to the heroes of this nation from its birth through its future and its wonderful history. With that said, we are back. We've got ourselves a friend of ours, and this is a man. I never really give you all the credit you're due, Michael. Michael Letts, he is not only just the president of Invest USA, he's also the chaplain at the Columbia Police Department upstate here in South Carolina, a state constable for the state of South Carolina, chaplain at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, executive pastor at the Hope Baptist Church, councilman at the Central Midland Council of Governments, Airport Commission. Oh, you were down here in Hilton Head yesterday, were you? If you were, I'd beat you up. How dare
I was
you
in and
try
out fast, and in and out fast.
Oh, well, I was at the other side of the council meeting over in St. Helena. You're also state counterintelligence counsel, former president of the Salty Fin, blah, 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 as well as, excuse me, His Excellency Count Sir Michael Letts, the Chevalier Mark, Knight of Honor of the Imperial, the teeth and backwards, Imperial Teutonic Order, from the Republic of Germany, Congressional Gold Medal Award for the 100th Congress, and the South Carolina Palmetto Award. Did I get it all in?
I think you got plenty and probably too much.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, I never did that to you. And all the times you've been on before, I said, I have to do this time. I can't let up.
All that in a dollar bill. I used to say all that in a quarter to get you a cup of coffee, but not anymore. All that in a dollar bill. Probably not even a dollar bill anymore. Probably $2 bills to get you a cup of coffee now.
Well, I can't believe you drove right past me. Ah, man. I got to beat you up.
Well, we had an escort going in and going out, so that pretty much wasn't operating on my schedule. I was operating on theirs. So.
Yeah, well, we had to cancel down there. Well, we had another portion up here we were arguing with.
Oh, I love it. Government's always fun to argue with. You never win, but it's always fun to argue anyway.
Well, the big story everyone is talking about is what happened last Saturday at the Hilton. And ironically, that's the same hotel that Ronald Reagan was shot outside of.
I did work with the Secret Service back during that time, so I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah.
And, yeah. In fact, I was on Fox News, and they asked, did I do any problems with the Secret Service? And I was very quick to say, the men and women are still as valorous as they've always been. I said, however, it's interesting to know they're not even using as good a protocol and logistics as we did back then. I can tell you this, and you know this, if you don't constantly update your logistics, your methodology, et cetera, to reflect the times and the change, you're not just sitting still, you're actually going backwards. So the leadership I do have fault with, but we'll work through it.
There's so many things I looked at that, and I'm just a street cop. And one of the things they teach you is if you're guarding something or someone, you face outward. You look for what's going to come at you. And as I was looking at that video, and the first time I saw it, it's just, why isn't he facing outward? What is he doing?
None of them facing outward. Where they in?
I know, and the canine dog confronts him, is alerted to something, and no sooner does he pull the canine out of the door, and that's when he jumped out of the door and ran through.
That's correct.
And what were they doing taking the what do they call them? Magnetrometers?
Yep, the magnetometer.
What do they call them today? What were they doing breaking them down when you barely had the event starting?
Right.
You always have latecomers.
No question. And the other thing is, and as you and I both know, when we're talking about securing entrances, we don't just have a magnometer. We have those entrances blocked. You just basically, it takes a bulldozer to get through them. I mean, that one was so easily penetratable that it was ridiculous. I mean, and
it was wide open. I mean, anyone could have danced right around it, but he said the shortest distance is going straight through.
It was pretty obvious there was an ingress and egress issue too, just for Secret Service, how long it took them to get to the stage. I mean, just how tightly packed people were. I've got a little bit of an emergency management background myself, and so I was just like, this is going to be a case study in a few years.
Yes, you're exactly right.
And exactly what not to do. And as I understand, there were 31 points of egress into the building itself.
31 that we've confirmed. There could be more.
And why weren't some of the elevator banks shut down? Simply shut them down, even if it's temporarily, just shut them down and guard the ones that are open.
Here's the issue, Ann, and now this is an extreme, but I will tell you because we've been doing this for so long. When the Crown Prince comes from, say, Bahrain, because he's a friend of mine, and we decide to go do lunch or whatever, and he wants to do it in a hotel, they shut down the whole hotel. Mm-hmm. Any guests are moved out. There is nobody there but he and I. That's it. That's how you guarantee, because you lock all the doors. You shut down. Yeah. In this instance, what do we do in the U.S.? We try to keep business as usual. We don't even modify business. Business as usual, open for full scale business. People coming in and out, checking in and out, going through back doors, as you said, going to pools, et cetera, running up and down the elevators. It's almost impossible, Ann, to guarantee security in a situation like that.
No, it's all the more reason for the ballroom to be at the White House.
No question. And, I was on Fox and they were asking that question. And I said, look, I know how much y'all hate you're looking to try to put something on the president. He's trying to build a memorial to himself. He won't even be in office when it's done, okay?
Right.
So just forget that argument. What he is trying to do is recognizing that there is a security issue and that he's trying to protect future presidents and future generations. Now, you want to criticize him for protecting somebody outside of himself, for protecting the future? Come on, we can do better than that.
Yeah.
No. There's so much that I saw that was it just drove me crazy. And every time I see it now, I want to scream at the TV. Why are you looking at your feet?
The
Why are you
one thing
turning
I
away?
do tell everybody, I'm going to do the same thing on your show. One thing I'm extremely grateful for is this Secret Service agent had one of our technologies, had a active shooter vest that had the titanium plates in it, because that was a long-range rifle. Had it been a concealable vest, it would have been where I saw the impact, the area of impact. It would have gone right through. It would have been a fatal shot. He'd have been dead. So, and if you'll notice, if you look at, watch the videotapes, he was about the only one in that area that had on an active shooter vest. The rest of them all had on concealables. So, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, people don't realize the bulletproof vest will not stop a knife. And this guy had several knives. I mean,
the only thing that'll stop a knife is the active shooter vest. It'll stop a long-range rifle knife. Why? Because it's a titanium plate in there. You can't, it'll stop a 50 cal. You'll still be dead from the blunt trauma, but it'll stop a 50 cal round. So, and back to why we started Invest. As you and I speak today, just barely over 10% of officers across the country have active shooter vests. 90% do not. And I mean, this is a perfect demonstration. They work. It's interesting. When we took the officer to the hospital, his first thing was we were checking out, because obviously you're going to check it out when you get hit with a round. Even though you have an active shooter vest, you still want to make sure there's no blunt trauma that penetrated through. Of course, we know there's not going to be, but who are we? We got to have a medical clearance to do that. So when we took him in there, his first question is, "Doc, can you hurry up? I got a president to protect. I got to get back to my duty station." That just shows you how well these vests work. It just also what fine officers we have. Of course, you were on the force, and and this is what I'm quick to tell when they say, "Well, are you going to criticize the Secret Service?" I'm not going to criticize the officers because I know most of their hearts. But yes, we do have some logistical and protocol procedures that are antiquated, or they've actually lessened. It's interesting what we do in special forces. And, people say, "Oh, look at the glory of the mission." The mission's not it. It's all the training that goes on continuously, okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, you do more training than you ever think about doing a mission. And I look at what we've done in the Secret Service, kind of like once we certify you, that's it. When is the active training? I mean, we do stage training very infrequently. And you'll notice we shot off quite a few rounds and it doesn't seem like anybody could get could peg their target.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm out of practice, but I'm not that bad.
Yeah, you may be out of practice, and you probably would have done better. A, and B, you weren't charged with protecting the life of the president of the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, folks. Let's we need to take our job seriously. They were asking me. They said, "What is your concern for security for the president?" I said, "Well, we've got great guys and gals, but I will tell you this: we've lowered the standard of what it takes to become a Secret Service officer. We don't offer the training that we used to, the ongoing training. And my biggest concern is that we're going to put somebody in there that we haven't vetted properly, who has that close proximity to the president, who will turn around and do the unthinkable." And I think we would be very careful of that.
Well, one of the things I wrote down when I was putting my notes together for you is that this is not the third attempt on Trump's life. This was the sixth attempt. And right now, 3 times the president was in the line of fire, almost, pretty damn close. At one point, he was shot, and 3 times he wasn't. So we got a 50-50 chance of this assassin being successful.
And actually, and there's quite a few more that you and the rest of the public are unaware of. So, especially with this presidency, it is just unrealistic as to how many attempts or planned attempts we've either thwarted or have been made. So here's the point, and if you know that your protectee is being that sought after, for lack of a better way to put it, Wouldn't you think you would make sure that you reviewed all your protocols, all your logistics, all your training, and the personnel you're assigning just to make sure that you accomplish your mission of keeping him safe?
Mhm.
Don't really know that I see that happening.
And Brett begs the question, what's it going to take until it does?
Well, one of the things that we had discussed, they don't like me for saying it, but at this stage, I really do believe, and you're already seeing it. It's already happening. We just don't advertise it. You're seeing special forces that are on the scene as well, and they would go nuts over me saying that because they don't want any military presence. But quite frankly, those are the boys that are training 24/7 continuously, and I can't think of a better mission than to secure the free leader of the world.
Yeah, and I saw that the special forces coming in. One of the things that really bothered me, though, is that as I was watching what was going on the stage on the days, they took J.D. Vance off first. Trump was second.
You are exactly right. That was a huge mistake. And I have repeated that more than once. The response was, it's easier to get him off because he's not as old. He can move quicker. I said, I don't give a damn what his age is or what his condition is. He's the president of the United States, and you protect the presidency. And that's exactly where the issue should have been, not the other way around. I mean, what are you going to do? I can barely move, man, so I don't get any protection anymore either, I guess, because of the fact I'm getting too old.
Oh, forget about me. I can barely move anymore. and Melania Trump was really upset, and rightfully so, because when they did hustle him off, of course, both of them to trip and fall. And
yes.
he should have been off first. And then J.D. Vance just walked off. He wasn't hustled. He walked off. And you had the entire line of succession to the presidency in one room.
That's a no-no.
That's a huge no.
That is a no-no. The other thing, and you picked that on, that just goes to show your training, that you've done this. This is not your first rodeo. You are right. Instead of coming up onto the diocese, they should have been immediately behind. And so they could have immediately launched in and pulled him, removed the president first, slid behind him to give the protection necessary as they were moving off. It was a little convoluted, shall we say. Had it been an actual full attempt, I'm not so sure the outcome would have been positive.
No, not at all. And it's really scary when you think about the possibilities that could have happened. And just there for the grace of God, it did not occur.
That's correct.
And I sincerely hope that this would be enough to snap the Secret Service into just revamping their entire protocol and never let something like this happen again. I mean, he and Vance should not have been in the same room at the same time, much less Speaker Johnson. Yeah, and the rest of the succession there. You had almost everyone that was prominent in government. This was like another 9/11. Wait a minute, didn't Keith Sutherland have a TV show?
He did, and you actually remember the episode, and that was the case. That's just understood. That is actually not just understood. It is actually a procedure. Why do you think we don't fly the president and the vice president on the same plane? Why do you think that we don't put them in the same vehicle when we do an escort? Because of just what you said. You want to make sure there's separation and distance. If something happened in one, you have the line of succession. Just what you said. You had the president, you had the vice president, you had the Speaker of the House, you had the president pro tem of the Senate. That is your full line of succession by the Constitution. All there, all vulnerable at the same time.
Yeah. And it's very, very, very scary. You've written a bunch about this, and I know that you've got more to come about this, a lot to develop. But, it's how did this guy slip through, too? How did he slip through? I mean, how did anyone not realize that he could be a potential threat? And when he checked into the hotel, no bells and whistles went off.
Well, you got two factors here, and this is why it's so difficult to do. I mean, if you're going to do it in a hotel, I'm not saying you can't, but you need to do it right. And what is right? Just what y'all alluded to. We check, everybody who's there, everybody who's coming in, and we vet them. They didn't do that with any of these. You make sure that you have the proper protocols in place so you can't access. I mean, even if we have to say, Ann, I hate to tell you this, but I know you're a guest here, but from 6 to 8, you're not leaving your room. We're locking down the area. Elevators won't be operational. every staircase will be manned, with armed security. We're locking the system down. You don't want to be in here. I advise you go get dinner some other place and come back after this is over, because we're locking down the place. That's what should have been done. But you asked a very pertinent question that the mainstream media certainly doesn't want me to discuss, and nobody else does either, for that matter. If you begin to take a look now at Mr. Cole's background, you're going to be very surprised at who he was involved with and who his some of the paid roles that he's had. Check Governor Newsom's staff records. Check Nancy Pelosi's staff records. Check DNC's staff records as to who served and helped provide all this. And you will find a direct line. The question then becomes, how close are you to those who are avid opponents of the president? And what, if any, role did they know, or did they have any knowledge of what was fixing to do? The other thing that really concerns me, Ann, is his stated profession. And of course, this is documented. We know it to be true. He serves as a teacher. Now, you could argue, is he a full-time teacher? Is he a part-time teacher? We could argue that back and forth on the show today. But he's definitely in the classroom. Now, is he the only teacher in America like this? I beg to differ. I think there are thousands of them across this country. So what do we do? You think it's bad now, what you've seen with Trump? What do you think is going to happen in the next generation when we've trained all of our young people to hate this country, to hate its Constitution, to hate conservatism, to hate principle, to hate value? And that's what we're actually force feeding all of our kids coming up through this corrupt educational system. And we're going to put them out on the street. What do you think it's going to be like then? I think it's time we wake up and realize that they have hijacked our education system. Of course, we've known this. We've talked about it. But it's kind of like we talk about it in passing. We don't put the urgency that needs to be on it. These people are hijacking our future generation. And we're going to really suffer in the years to come if we don't do something to intervene and to stop it from happening now. And that's what really concerns me the most. This is a teacher who has that kind of vile hatred. What's he putting out in the classroom?
Yeah, that's well said. And I think the security lapses didn't begin or end with the vetting or the hotel in and of itself. He was able to get on a train with all of his guns and travel cross nation. I mean, there's layers to this, and it's a systematic failure. Yeah,
they don't screen for firearms they do it on the airplanes, but they don't do anything else. You can grab a Greyhound bus, you can grab a train ride, you can hijack one with a trucker. I mean, we don't have the kind of security protocols that we really should have in this country. Yeah. And we've always done it in the past because, I don't want to impose on your individual freedoms. I don't either. But at the same time, there's a balance. And let me just use it this way. I'm the biggest proponent of the First Amendment, freedom of speech. But I don't really have 100% freedom of speech because I can't walk into a crowded theater and yell fire. I mean, we have limitations. My freedom of speech ends when it puts other people's lives in jeopardy and when it jeopardizes the well-being of others. And that's what I think we have to recognize. There are things that occur, we got to have screenings. I mean, why could you just put anything on a train? As you said, Hannah, we should have picked up on it way before he ever got to D.C. And then the fact that he has been on these no king marches, etc. He has the mainstream media would have you to believe that, this is a person like Hannah, no record, no. I mean, how did they, we didn't even know about it. It's really not true. We do know. What we're doing now is providing cover so that we don't alarm the American people. And I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think we should be transparent. People need to know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, we've made where violence is now the new norm. It basically is the new norm. You have someone as a public figure, a law enforcement officer like Comey, putting out 86-30-47. Now, when he first did that, which was I think was 2 years ago when he did it originally, if I'm correct, I talked about it. I put the graphic up, and I said, anyone throughout all 50 states knows what 86 is. You right. You kill it. It's dead.
Especially the head of the FBI.
Exactly. Someone of his stature who's law enforcement knows something like that. And you don't put it on social media because now you're aiding and abetting in the commission of a violent act by promoting it. And you see this time and time again. There were these, I don't know if it was TikTok or one of the other things, these videos of everyone praising the fact and singing to the fact that Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Yes.
And imitating the murder.
Yep.
I mean, and wait a minute, as you said, you don't yell fire in a crowded theater, but that's exactly what they're doing. The whole youth today, not even just the youth, you can just turn around and find anyone in any generation, yielding to this new idea that it's perfectly okay for this leftist socialism, wokeism, and violent tendency towards anyone who doesn't think like you.
No, you're exactly right. I think what the problem is we've allowed them to hijack a lot of our terminology and a lot of our constitutionalism and twist it to their own advantage. Let's just use the issue. I know I catch criticism all the time. You know that, Ann, but I'm fine being criticized. When it talks about we have a real threat in this country from Islamic jihadism, Islamic extremism. Now, Islamic extremism comes from the Muslim culture, okay? Now, I don't call it a religion because it's not. A religion would never tell you that, and if you don't believe what I believe, you should be dead. That's ideology. That's what communism does, okay? That's not what our religion does. But anyway, they hide behind our freedom of religion and say, oh, don't you dare say a word about that because you're infringing on my freedom of religion. And they're twisting that to allow themselves to do nefarious activities, to organize, to help plan plots, terrorism plots. We know this for a fact. I'm not spouting off without having plenty of facts to back me up if I'm challenged. We allow them to do that, but nobody wants to say anything because they're scared they'll be accused of somehow infringing on freedom of religion. Same thing with freedom of speech. Well, I know you shouldn't holler fire in a crowded theater, but I don't want to be guilty of being said that I'm infringing on your freedom of speech. So we allow things to be our own constitution to be twisted and distorted to their advantage. And it's time that we stand up for this, because as long as we allow them to do it and not challenge them to do it, they're going to continue to do it. And they're going to continue to punch holes into our security system, punch holes into our way of life, and think that they're protected from any repercussions of doing so. And quite frankly, and I think that one of the key things that's lacking in this country now, you and I have talked about it, it's time to start holding people accountable for their actions. I mean, if you want to do that action, great. But you need to be accountable for the consequences of what your action is.
That ties in nicely with I think it was you, Michael, who wrote an article recently on the SPLC being caught subsidizing basically the hate that they've been selling as an existential threat. Yeah. So I wondered if you could, take a step back and reframe that and speak to our audience and our listeners about that and what you think about it all.
Well, it's interesting how all this progresses. I'm talking about the whole government corruption. I know people get upset when I say this, but we are probably, unfortunately, America has become one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And part of that corruption is we take resources from Americans and figure out how to gain monetary value through them. And so you get this nonprofit that takes taxpayer funds and then uses those taxpayer funds to pay the people that they're trying to oppose to generate more controversy so they can run back to the taxpayers, which is Congress, and their base of support, they're all their bailouts, and say, look at this, we started opposing this, now it's tenfold worse than what it was before. Got to have more of your money, got to have more of your cash. Do you think any of that cash is actually reaching the objective? 10% of it may be, but 90% is going to enrich their pockets. It's a lucrative. It's funny. I heard, of course, I can't remember who it was now, but he made the comment. He was testifying on the Hill to the Senate, and I think Josh Hawley asked him the question, "How does this come about?" He said, "You know what? Sad to say, but these people have figured out that the people who question the least and don't ask how money gets misused is Congress, is the American taxpayers. They have figured out that, first of all, Congress doesn't run out of money. I mean, we just print more if we need it. So don't worry about somebody saying, I can't pay my grocery bill today. Where did my $200 go? And start looking for it. They don't do that. They just, there's $200 short. Just print $200 more and give it to me. So the risk of getting caught is almost zero. And then because of the fact that nobody wants to be found guilty of being the bully or overseeing or demanding accountability, they just ignore it. They just let it go. And once you set that stage from a criminality standpoint, you're inviting people to come in and say, man, this is this is like going into a jewelry store with no security and no tellers, no waiters. I mean, no customer service. It's just there, and they don't even lock the glass cases. You just pick them up, grab what you want, and walk out the door. Once you figure out that's what that jewelry store is all about, that's where they all start going. It's the same principle here, and that's what's the sad part about what you talk about with the law center, is they figured out how to put together a scam.
They manufactured the hate.
They've been working it, a long time. And that's what happens with everything we're talking about. That's what happens in Minnesota with all the fraud. American government and American taxpayers are the most gullible people in the world. And it's not because we're not smart. I'm questioning whether it's because of the fact that we've got nothing but corruption in there now. In fact, I think that's really the case. We've got so much corruption, everybody wants to cover for themselves. Let me make sure I keep making my money. I keep stealing my money. I won't rat on you if you won't rat on me. And no wonder why everybody wants to work for the government. Everybody wants to be a member of Congress. It's the fastest and easiest money you can get.
Yeah, well said.
My mind is about 15 different directions. But we've had members of Congress who made it their life job, not representing the people that voted for them, but to line their pocket. Let's see, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, Ilhan Omar.
Yes.
And instead of taming it back, every time we expose it, it seems just to get worse and worse and worse. Congress is doing nothing to police itself.
You're right. And here's where I get people that really get upset with me. Because we used to say years back, them blasted Democrats, look at what they're doing. But it's not just the Democrats. We have Republicans doing the same thing. We call them rhinos, but it's the same thing. And
Mitch McConnell?
Yeah. And how do you validate that statement? Well, we just had on the Hill 2 days ago a motion to go on ahead. You remember now, Ilhan Omar we've already got the documentation that she falsified her immigration records. Okay. She should automatically be on a plane. Forget being in Congress. She should be on a plane out of here by 5 o'clock this afternoon. And so there was a resolution to ask for the enforcement of the immigration status on her. It failed. And not only did it fail because of the Democrats, there weren't enough Democrats to cause it to fail. There were not just a handful, there were a lot of Republicans that voted to table it. Why would you table enforcing the law, Ann? And the reason why is because we're all in this big boat together. We're all taking money together, folks. And, if I get rid of Hannah, then she might rat on me. So let's just all stay here together. We'll protect each other. We'll all criticize what a horrible thing that is to steal from the taxpayer, but we're not going to do a blessed thing about it.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I don't know if you can stick around because we got our next guest trying to look as spiffy as you are.
That won't take that long. That won't be very hard to do. I can assure you that.
All right. Well, as soon as he's done buttoning his shirt, I'll bring him on. I don't know if he can hear us.
I'm happy to stay as long as you need me, Ann.
Okay. Well, we're bringing on a friend of the show who's been on before, Dennis Kneale. Good afternoon, Dennis. How are you today?
Hello. And I've just been driving all the way from Boca Raton up to Sebastian, Florida for my high school reunion. I just got here in time. I was so afraid I was going to miss this hit. So I'm quite relieved and happy. It's great to see you again.
What's been bugging you, Dennis?
Well, you know what? On Saturday, this past, my new book actually made it into print on Amazon. Oregoners, How One State Chased Away Businesses and People. To look at how it's a canary in the coal mine for blue states everywhere. It's so small that you can see the big impact on it. And I'll be darned, it suddenly has hit #1 bestseller status on Amazon in a bunch of, like 3 different tiny little categories where you can shoot up to #1 without a million sales. So yeah, ecological policy and social policy. So I'm just thrilled about it. And if I apologize for the filibuster, guys, but I'll finish here. A year ago, my book, the Leadership Genius of Elon Musk, came out. It took HarperCollins, one of the biggest publishers in the world, great company. I'm very grateful. 9 months to get that puppy out the door, like gestation for a human being. Whereas this thing, loaded up to Amazon a week or two ago, and that baby's out there now and available online. And that is utterly just disrupting the publishing industry. And I got to tell you, man, I want to see how the two books fare versus each other. And if this baby outsells this big HarperCollins thing, when I went straight to Amazon, it's like going straight to video in the old days with a movie when it just wasn't that good. So that's what I'm afraid it might look like, but I don't care. I'm happy to get out there because this is ripped from the headlines, and Oregon is in trouble. It's driving off a cliff because of its own well-intended, stupidly liberal policies. And there's an election coming up. So I got this baby out before the primary in May and before the November. So as you can tell, I'm very pleased with myself. You know what? You got to love your own stuff. Otherwise, who else will?
Well,
Exactly
whatever they put up as the graphic for publishing your book, it's a little bit different than what you got in your hand. But I did find the graphic for it.
You did? Huh. Yeah, it's a little, it's rather Rockwellian. It's got a guy saying goodbye to his mom, his two little daughters are there. But it literally is what's happening. There are thousands of people, taxpayers. There's hundreds of rich taxpayers leaving that place because it's out of control. It's just, I mean, here's the thing. It's one thing to pay high taxes. I was in New York for 43 years, just moved down to South Florida only in January, a huge change. I paid super high taxes. But, in New York, you get a lot more for those taxes than you do for the taxes in Portland, which is second only in New York City in terms of how high the taxes are. In New York, there's trouble in Times Square, man. Those cops are there in 2 minutes. In Portland, the average wait after you make a 911 call for a violent crime is 19 minutes. Wow. So in Portland, in Multnomah County, they spend $727 million a year on 18,000 homeless people. Yet the homeless ranks went up by 64% in 2 years. What are they getting for that money? And one last thing, in Portland, the city has a $700 million unspent surplus and a Portland Clean Energy Fund. They set up this new tax, right? Oh, it's only 1% on every retailer with anything over, I think, $1 million in sales. They were expected to bring in $60 million. They bring in like $200 million a year. And it's just sitting there, and they're using it for basically their friends. Okay, hey, here's a grant for 40 Black business owners to buy electric cars because that's going to help reduce carbon emissions. No, it won't, but it will make those owners feel good to get a car at half price. So that's the kind of things going on there.
Oh man, I don't even know where to start with this.
It's a lot. I'm excited for you though, Dennis. Last time we had you on, you were talking about the book and hoping that it would get released on the timeline that you had intended. And so I'm very excited for you. I'll have to check it out.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And I remember what a dogged researcher you were on some of the stuff we were talking about. So I was looking forward to this today.
Yeah, Oregon happens to be a sanctuary state, and it's got some very bad woke policies, not just in one political ideology, but across the board. And so, I've done I've not as much as you, but I've done some research on Oregon.
Oregon loves being first at everything, right? It was the very first state in the union to do a voter ballot signature proposal thing in the 1850s or 60s. And it was the third state to approve that idea, but the first state to implement it was the first state ever in 2020, right? To basically decriminalize even the hardest drugs. And of course, that backfired hugely. And now it wants to be the first state to do this. Have you guys heard of IP28, Initiative Proposal 28? They're gathering 100,000 or more signatures. It probably will get enough to get on the ballot in November. And what it says is the anti-animal cruelty protections that are granted to your dog and cat at home, they shall be extended to all animals and all creatures of God, to cows, pigs, chickens, fish, frogs. And what this means is you can't kill any of them. It would take castration on a cattle ranch and redefine it as sexual assault. It is a crazy law, and they pretend it is aimed at protecting animals because they're so sweet. But no, it is aimed at putting commercial fishing, ranching, farming out of business. These green TIFA activists, these crazy libs, really don't want this state, don't want people to be able to live off the land, when that is how Oregon was formed. It was the biggest timber producer in the country. And then they ruined that in the 90s, all under the guise of saving a stupid bird, the spotted owl.
And New York is coming right behind it. And as you know, former New Yorker also, I got here 26 years ago, 25 actually, January. Yeah, so I was 25 years ahead of you.
Yes.
But I left New York. The sales tax up there had gone up to 8%. I hate to think of what it is in New York at this point.
Yeah, well, it's
I'm down here.
But Mamdani, Kami Mamdani wants to raise taxes everywhere. And, you know, the Democrats don't realize it is not a lack of tax collection that is the problem, right? It's spending on everything that is the problem, too much spending. And I think both parties are guilty of that.
Well, you know, we're seeing the failure of the free buses didn't quite make it. They're now going for the $30 million free grocery stores, which are not really free, because your taxes are paying for the groceries going in there. So you still have to pay for the groceries that you've already paid taxes for.
Right. And at 30 million, you know, it turns out in the regular grocery business, you should be able to, I read this, you should be able to build 4 or 5 stores for that 30 million that they're going to spend on one store. They've got a $65 million budget for 5 stores, and they're spending almost half that on just the first one. You know, government is incompetent. Government is inefficient. And it's because government doesn't care. The bureaucrats approving the spending, it's not their money. So they just don't worry about it. I had a guy years ago working for the Rockefeller Family Venture Capital Fund, and they turned him down. He's out there scouting for multi-million-dollar investments for them. And when he turned in a receipt because he wanted them to reimburse him $32 a year for a subscription to the New Yorker magazine, they said no. And he pointed out that it's because that money is theirs. It's the family's money. And so they are much more careful with how they spend it. A government bureaucrat would approve that request, no questions asked, because it's not the government bureaucrat's money.
I think also, though, Dennis, they have an ulterior, a direct motive, just like we took on the grocery stores. You know, if you're trying to make sure you control the populace, you want to, first of all, eliminate their guns, which, of course, we all know they're after, the Second Amendment, anything else like that. But the other great thing you can do is if you eliminate their ability for them to have their own access to food, if you give China all the farmland so that they can control the crops, if you shut down private grocery stores and make them all public, you know, it's all they have to do. Decide, I don't think you should eat today, Dennis. I didn't like what you said in your book. And they control it then, and bam, what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, you know what? I saw a photo on the X platform. You know, I believe that Elon Musk's X platform is the freest in the world. I believe that it's changed the world, and it changed the course of our country. And I wrote a book on Elon, and I talk about that. And so I'm really happy for that. Never mind that they have suspended or permanently shut down my account a couple of times without even explaining why. But, you know, I read on the X, and it showed exactly what you're talking about in China, where they have this social score now on whether you're a good person and you post nice things. It had a photo, all these young homeless people sleeping outside because they can't get an apartment, they can't get a job, because they have been stigmatized and they've been excommunicated because of their behavior. It's incredible. In the UK, didn't you love that the Democrats in Congress are giving a standing ovation to King Charles after they
get no kings.
No kings protest? It shows you how ridiculous they are. It really gives the lie to everything, right? Oh my gosh. And so I forgot where I was going with that, but that's enough of a point. I should let someone else talk for a minute. I apologize. It's just that I was driving here, speeding 89 miles an hour to get here on time because I left late. And I'm so happy to have made it. So, okay. My apologies.
Man. But what we're seeing, I'm hoping that the red part of this country, the red states, will get enough momentum to say, from what we saw this past Saturday, the multiple attempts on Trump's life. I'm sure Michael knows how many more. I said 60. He says a heck of a lot more, but he's got the in with everyone there, having been Secret Service at one point, among many other things.
I'm sorry, but I'll forget this unless I interrupt you, Annie. Are you saying that there's not just the 3 that the rest of us regular people know about? You're saying there's 3 others that we don't know about?
No, there's 3 that I know publicly about, and Michael knows there's a lot more than that.
She is giving you the 3 that you hear from the media because they were actually close attempts.
Yeah.
There are so many more that we have
Iran
documented
tried to
that
pull
didn't
something.
get into the media because they never got it quite to the final stage.
Yeah, well, I question whether the media would play it up all that much anyway, because every attempt makes Trump look good in a way, and so they tend to underplay it sometimes. It feels like. Now, did you see this post on X? Footage of Johnny Carson, who apparently was hosting an awards program, maybe the Oscars, and there's been an assassination of Trump, an actual shooting of Reagan, and he announces that the president is okay, and there's rousing applause from a Hollywood audience.
Correct.
When that happened.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see that today.
No. The only thing you see today is it being flooded. So sorry that the mission wasn't completed. So sorry he didn't get through and finish the task. That's what you see today.
It's really sad.
I think social media has emboldened people to act that way. These keyboard warriors.
You know, one of the biggest sins and the biggest flaws of social media and the internet is anonymity. It was originally granted because you're protesting the oppressive South Africa apartheid government. They'll kill you. We'll give you protection. But now it protects a kid who's accusing his teacher of pedophilia. It's ridiculous. And if everyone knew that, even if they have a nom de plume, that they were traceable and that they can be held accountable, things would be a lot more civil and a lot more polite online. There's all this keyboard courage. I have always stood up for every single thing I say with my name attached to my account. That requires a certain amount of courage, and it imposes a certain amount of civility and discipline on what I'm going to say.
We're missing that. We don't have it anymore.
No. And like you said, it's the keyboard courage. I like that. I like that a lot. Which is exactly what it is.
Big talkers who would never say that to someone's face, would never dare do that. You know, just awful that they're allowed to prattle on like that. But it's even worse on other platforms where they are still censoring, they are still restraining conservative accounts, and everyone thinks that X is a conservative account. But I, a conservative, get so many liberal posts in my feed from politicians, from opinion makers, etc. A huge amount of liberal stuff comes into my feed. And it's fine. You know, that as you guys know, the answer is not to restrain any content. The answer is to flood the zone with better content.
Exactly. I think I lost about maybe 4 or 5 about 3 YouTube accounts, I think, and about 4 or 5 Facebook accounts. I think about 3 X accounts. So I'm up there. Wow. Every time they ban me, I go, "Hey, I'm somebody."
Yes.
I'm somebody.
It's a badge of honor.
Yeah. I've yet to be banned off anything, so I'm waiting on the ban.
We got to prod you a little bit more.
When I was an anchor at the Fox Business Network, there was a guy on there, a real firebrand, Charlie Gasparino. You know, a Goodfellas New Yorker, literally formerly a Golden Glove, boxer in his younger days. The guy does like 20 push-ups. He's in great shape. He and I were just arch rivals and enemies because when you're in television, every extra minute you get is a minute that another guy there doesn't get. And so it's much more Viper competitive. And Charlie was, never mind. It's too long a story. We'll cut to something else. Go ahead.
I love Gasparino. I loved him. He's a fellow Italian.
He is really great. It's just that he was always offending. He was always telling people to F off and picking and challenging to fights online, etc. Okay. I am there. I'm new. He's been there 3 years. And anytime PR complains to him, he just battered the hell out of him. So they were afraid of him. Meanwhile, I got called to the principal's office 13 times for my tweets. Okay. I mean, and I just felt like, how come he's doing all this stuff, but me, you keep coming after me? And once they grab onto you, and now they're watching, they're just waiting to crack down again. I've decided somewhere, guys, that every argument I've ever been in with a wife, a lover, a workmate, a boss, every single argument, maybe at the bottom was about the same thing. Control. Who's in control here? Are you going to do what I want you to do, what I tell you to do? And my problem in my entire life has always been that as soon as you order me to do something,
I'm going to do the exact opposite.
I will resist because it just bugs me. And that's what journalists are. They're just naturally ornery.
Matter of fact, last night I got into a fight with my husband. The second you tell me to do something, I'm doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
So it doesn't get any better. I've got a 6-year-old, and it's like pulling teeth just to make him wipe his own butt. I mean, I can't make him do anything.
Wait a minute. I don't want to see the link between the face and the butt.
But you know, when I was raising my daughter, who's now 25, I realized that so many of the fights you could get in, because I was a divorced dad, and I'd have her all weekend, you know, just me and her. And as soon as something is made into a big issue, it gives the child power. If now I'm going after it, so I would instead just divert and go on to another, you know, another thing, and not, because the more I would try to force her into something, the more resistance she would get. But also now the more power it's giving her, because I'm upset, and now it's the center of attention instead of just moving on. And so I ended up kind of doing in runs and coming up with a different, and also learned this other technique, you know, the double bind. You give them a choice, but either choice is really what you want. It doesn't matter the power of making a choice. They teach you that in business negotiation, in sales, to give them a double bind.
But isn't this
Carlson? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Isn't this exactly what the left is doing to us? They're giving us the double bind, the lesser of two evils. You know, you got Mamdani with the free grocery stores, and if you're not going to get all this free stuff from Mamdani is turning around to Hochul and saying, you got to give me money to make up the deficit. So you've got a double bind. Either I get this free stuff, or you're going to pay me for the deficit I just incurred.
Right. Either way, he gets money. He's looking for extra money. Yeah. Right.
But that's what the left has been doing to us all along, a double bind.
The reason I wanted to focus my new book on Oregoners is because New York is so big and diverse that it's going to be here forever. Nothing's ever going to really destroy it. Or if it is, it's going to take decades and decades. But in Oregon, instantly, the results of their policies show up. In 2020, they passed a new tax, preschool for all. Let's have preschools for every 3- and 4-year-old, not just 5-year-olds. Well, they ended up raising, again, hundreds of millions of dollars more than they spent, because it turns out the market doesn't have that many preschools. They don't just overnight pop up, okay? So they saved vastly more. But in the next 3 years, the 1,000 richest taxpayers by name who are tracked in Multnomah County, where that tax was approved, 3 years later, 310 of the 1,000 richest had left. And so you saw that result instantly. And it's such a small state, 4.2 million. The Portland metro area is 2.5 million almost of that. The media market in Portland is 65%. So this is why it is much more a petri dish or a canary in the coal mine for the impact of these policies. They're terrible policies that are based only on high moral intent. Aren't we good people for voting for this? And never based on outcome and accountability.
Well said. Aren't you mad at Bruce Springsteen right now, Dennis?
You know, I went on Newsmax and I said this live, and they liked it so much they snipped it and put it out, and it got something like 40,000 views, I think. And it was they showed footage of Bruce criticizing Trump, and I just said there's something utterly unattractive about a 76-year-old man espousing the views of some vegan college freshman. Yeah. I mean, come on, man. I don't care what you have to say about that. And the other thing is, I'm torn, because I know that everyone wants to blame the bitter criticism and the Nazis and all that stuff, blah, 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 aimed at Trump on these assassination attempts. It's just that millions of other people heard those same things and did nothing. They did not go do that. So to blame all of that rhetoric because one guy out of millions did that, I feel is almost, how about blaming him, the shooter himself? How about blaming his parents? The guy's 31 years old, living with mom and dad. You guys didn't notice kind of the increasing craziness, or his friends? You know, in mass shootings, they recently had a jury award, didn't they, against the parents of the kid, right? Well, something like that needs to be done here. But I think, yes, it is out of control, and never do they anymore attack the policies. They never say, hey, I'm against tax-free tips for service people. They never say, I'm against the Trump idea of capping interest, credit card interest at 10% instead of 25%. They never talk about the policies because they look bad on policies. And that happens in Oregon. There's something they call, a guy there told me about this, the nationalization of local politics. In Oregon, all the Democrats want to talk about is Trump. That's all. But this weekend, past weekend, I was in Welch's, Oregon, near Mount Hood, for the 60th annual Dorchester Conference of Conservatives, Republicans. They didn't mention Trump at all. I was in a big session for 2 hours. His name came up once at the end, fleetingly. And I asked him, what is going on? They said, you cannot, this state hates Trump too much. You cannot run and embrace Trump and expect to get elected in any legislative, congressional district or statewide election. Still, in the 2024 election, Trump got more votes than Democrat Governor-elect Tina Kotek got in 2022. There's a 40% solid Republican base in Oregon. It's just snuffed out by that gerrymandering that we just saw the Supreme Court rule out for race reasons. Apparently, gerrymandering for reasons of party, that's just fine.
Oh man, this show has actually gotten run away. I mean, half the questions I had put on here just haven't even come close to being put up there.
We're just going to have to double the length of this segment. Go ahead, ask me, Andy.
But there was some surveys out about YouGov. I put a poll that a whopping 42% of the self-described liberals believe political violence is sometimes justifiable. We're only 9% of conservatives, and yet we are called the ones that are the neo-Nazis. We're being told what the Democrats actually are. We're told we're KKK, but it was the Democratic Party that put the KKK together. We were told we were segregationists, but it was underneath the Democrats that was segregation.
It's Jungian projection. Carl Jung, the disciple of Freud, said that the things you hate in someone else are likely things that are in yourself that you hate. And that's what they keep doing to conservatives. And that stat, that's where you just blew up my argument where I say blame the shooter. That stat about how many Democrats think, yes, sometimes political violence is necessary. That's a direct result of that kind of rhetoric. And so you make a good point there. And by the way, they're wrong. They're such drama queens. We have an incredible life here in this country. The thought that anything is bad enough to justify.
Oh, we just lost him for a second.
Oh no.
Oh no, this was just getting good.
He was on one too. He's great.
Yeah, I think he's frozen time at the moment.
Yeah.
So we're going to have the frozen time. Good clip that Newsmax has.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that come across my feed. He was complaining. I was like, did Dennis just compare Bruce to a vegan?
Oh man. Well, it's just as well because we're down to our last 8 minutes. Holy cow. The show is going so fast. And like I said, I lost total control of it.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, and that's for sure.
But now, Michael, now from a law enforcement point of view, how do we now start to curb this violence that we see? Do we hold people like we're holding Comey responsible for their words and actions? Do we do this across the board to anyone who speaks out and say it's perfectly fine to murder Trump?
Well, here's what we've got, Ed, and we'll talk about the Comey issue real quick. We know for a fact that, of course, Tulsi has been pulling together all the documentation with Barack and other things, his cabinet, from Brennan to, Susan Rice, etc., on the treason issue.
It's great.
It is. And here's what I was telling the question Dennis that Ann was asking. She was asking about Comey. And I said, look, because I've been answering this question all week long. People who say, why would we go after him on a case that is most people think is insignificant or a 50-50 shot at winning, et cetera? The issue, Ann, is this. Comey was part of the Barack administration. And we have that case under full investigation now. It's before a tribunal. We're getting ready to move and shut that down. Now, how do you make these cases work the best? You and from your experience in law enforcement, if you get somebody on the inside that's been sitting in all the meetings, that's been part of it, to actually turncoat testify, well, the stuff that's occurring with Comey, let me just tell America, don't judge what you see. Wait until you see the end result. Yeah. And I think you will find that Comey and Canary, that's a bird, by the way, will be very synonymous when this plays out here very shortly. It's coming very quickly now.
When I first saw that indictment for the 8647 shell thing, I just thought, this is the best you got. This guy helped oversee one of the worst conspiracies in the history of our government. This is the best you got. And then I realized, someone told me, no. You start there. You have a pressure point. Now you got a pair of pliers and a a piece of them, and now you see what else shakes loose. I see.
I can tell you, Dennis, we've already got the squeeze, and it's working exceptionally well. So America, just be patient.
I've been waiting for 4 or 5 years for this to come out. We've known all of this stuff. It was all there. It's just the media never covered it. But a case like that filed will force them to cover it, And don't you think, Annie, the way to stop this, what was the percentage of Democrats who like the idea of political violence? 43% or 23%?
42% for violence was justifiable, but 56% it was perfectly justified to murder Trump. That's even higher.
That is just, I feel like we need to shame them. The Republicans should run ads quoting prominent officials, their face, showing what they said, and then with a hammerhead at the bottom saying, is this the way you want your leaders to speak about your country? I mean, they should single them out and shame. I mean, drunk driving, getting drunk in public for decades was seen as funny. Oh, that crazy guy. And then suddenly it was shameful to be that way because of public campaigns. And it's not, the way to stop people from texting and driving is to shame them with public campaigns or to reinforce with advertising, not to pass a law, because now they're hiding the phone underneath the steering wheel and they're even riskier, So I think it's maybe the drumbeat of public opinion, but there is no shame anymore, is there? People
there's not, Dennis, but there's fixing to be. If we start showing people in cuffs that there is actual accountability being held, and we're talking about the previous administration, the Obama administration being one of the first, I think you're going to see such a spin that it's going to blow people's minds. One thing I know about the criminal element, there's no honor and integrity among criminals. They turn on each other faster than rats jumping off a sinking ship. And so I think when we start this, you will open up a can of worms that you can then quickly go back and say, look, these philosophies, these actions came from these philosophies. And if I was you, I'd be careful about associating myself with those philosophies anymore because they're walking away in cuffs.
Michael, can you imagine, guys, if Comey came out and said, Obama made me do it? And then Obama
I don't have to imagine, Dennis. I can see it already.
Sorry?
I don't have to imagine. I know what's coming.
Oh, my gosh.
But to your point, Dennis, these advertisement campaigns, they shouldn't just focus around the election cycle. They should be all the time, these shaming campaigns. Yeah, I agree.
It's time for more civil conversation. Why is it that so many of my liberal friends are unable to debate? They're unable. I've almost lost a beloved, one of my best, closest friends. 50 years we've known each other, since high school band. We talked all the time. He's up in New York. We've known each other up in New York where I was for years and years. But then he stopped returning texts and calls. I said, what's going on? I confronted him finally. He said, it just feels like someone I've known my entire life has suddenly discovered God, and now all he wants to talk about is the baby Jesus, because I'm talking about the politics stuff. And I think the reason liberals are shrinking from it is because they are embarrassed. They're embarrassed at what their policies are leading to, what their leaders are recommending and pushing. I think they've lost the argument. Isn't it true that anytime name calling starts in an argument, it means you've lost on the facts?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Herman Cain? Herman Cain said they sin. They switch the subject, they ignore the fact, and then they name call. Herman Cain, that was his saying. Sin, as I am.
Right.
The sad part about it, Dennis, is you said, what have they been learning? That's the problem. Our educational system, what are we teaching this upcoming generation? Certainly not how to debate, certainly not reading, writing, arithmetics.
No, just that America was bad and that we've stolen native land. I mean, I read an audit of misspending at NGO programs, funded by the government in Oregon. And it was the most remarkable intro I've ever seen. The state auditor saying, first, before we talk about the misspending at this place, we must acknowledge the stolen land from 6 different tribes and names of them. What has that got to do with price of bread? It's just so solemn and noble, and it's so kind of really self-aggrandizing. Aren't we incredibly sensitive to be talking about these things?
But I always ask the question, all right, so if we're on stolen land, are you willing to give up your home and your business and give it back to them?
Like Billie Eilish.
Are you going to be the first one to do that?
Yes, exactly.
Never got anybody except
rhetoric for nothing.
No. Well, guys, we're down to our last minute. So, Dennis, people can find you at your name, Dennis Kneale, and that's where your book is. Both your books are there, and you'll find it up on Amazon.
Yes,
right. Michael, I'm waiting for you to write a book. But Michael,
we've got one out, and we've got a second one that's fixing to debut any day now.
How come you haven't sent it to me?
Yeah, you see the first one's out. It's over here to my whatever direction that is, where I'm pointing right behind me. And the second one you're going to love is a graphic novel with 3 superhero first responders. And that's going to try to reach our young people to show them first responders.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sweet. So you're investusa.org. And also, Dennis, you have Save Our Cities, also a website.
They're just a source for a poll for the book. They showed 2/3 of people there are unhappy and in the wrong direction. They say the state's going. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation. I'll talk less next time if you ever give me another shot.
All right. So until then, we say good night and God bless. And
God bless.
We're past our time. So until then, take care.